What it is, y'all, it is your old boy Pilk, and I'm coming back at you today with more Danmachi. Now, today we're going to be talking about Record Buster. We haven't really talked about this, and I don't think we've ever actually covered Finn's Record Buster in the kind of detail we've covered other ones in. So, I think it would be worthwhile actually going through a run on this, and basically covering everything he does, because it's quite a bit different than other Record Busters. It's not the end of the world by a long shot, but it definitely is a bit different. So let's go ahead and jump in here. Now, I've got a team that's been doing pretty well. Probably could get higher marks than what I've been doing, but I'm just going to give you guys the brief overview of how I've been running this and how you can be successful on this. Now, first things first, do know that when you're going into this one, now this is only going to be for this Finn. This isn't for every single Finn. You want to make sure that you're using as many wind units as you can, because he is weak to wind attacks. Now, the other thing is really different between Finn and most other events. Finn doesn't really do an ailment, so to speak. Finn's going to have a specific element that he attacks with, and in this case, it is Earth. So you want to try to use an Earth coat. And if you don't know what I mean by an Earth coat, let me go here to Eyes. So, Earth coat, right there. Basically, if I go into the equipment list, it gives you... Well, it has the ability to give you Earth Resistance 20%. That basically is going to be your best guard against the incoming attacks. You can use breastplates or paladin armors or whatever, but I personally find that Earth Coats are way, and I mean a lot more, let's say convenient, because they are kind of a pain to make, but they're a little bit more reliable in this type of event. So if you don't have Earth Coats, easiest way to get one, basically go over here to the blacksmith, bam, go to crafting, go to armor, and you'll see wind coats there up top, mage's robe all there, or you can go to filter and filter it down by robes, and you've got wind coat, mage's robe, holy coat, and each one of these do something very specific. Obviously, dark coat is for dark, flame coat is for fire, frost coat is for bunny enough water, thunder coat is, as you can guess, for lightning, and earth coat. Earth coat is what you're looking for, so hopefully craft a few of those. Now, when you craft these, there's a possibility, I'm not going to actually craft one, I'll craft one, whatever. There's a possibility it might not actually give you that earth resistance. So notice it actually didn't give me this right here. So endurance 20, AGL 30. That's actually pretty good, but I need that earth resistance. So if I don't get that, I would either go craft another one, or if I don't have the items to craft it, you can always go rehammer it. Okay, if we go over here to rehammer, and you're going to want to go to attributes, not status, attributes. I'm going to filter this down by robe, and let's just grab any old earth coat that I've got. And if I go here to rehammer, it's going to tell me over here you can get up to 3 attributes. So endurance 20, endurance 10, agility 30, dex 30, or earth resistance 20. You always want to make sure that you get that earth resistance 20. That's what's going to give you the best stats for this. So if you've been having a hard time taking this on, maybe go give that another shot if you haven't already. That said, let's go ahead and jump in here. Now, every time that Finn is, I guess, available in this, you want to find out basically what element that he's going to be utilizing. The easiest way to do that is to find out what he's weak against, because it'll always be directly proportional. Case in point, if we go to him right now, he is weak to wind. So basically, that's always going to be an earth type. Like, if he's, let's say he's weak to fire, then it's going to be water type, so on and so forth. Pretty straightforward. If he's weak to light, he'll be dark type. You could pretty much approximate what he's going to do. Actually, I think fire is weak to water. So I can't remember which one, because one then is weak then to wind. I think fire is weak to water, water is weak to wind. So either way, I probably have that completely wrong now, but neither here nor there. You just want to use the right elements to go into this. Now, the other thing to remember that Finn doesn't really, like, he will debuff everybody. Himself, you, everybody. But before he does that, he does a big magic and physical buff. So you want to make sure that you have somebody that can remove physical and magic buffs both on turn 4. So for me, that's what my Anya there is doing in slot 3. So let's go ahead and here and talk about what he's going to do turn by turn, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and do my general buff stack. It's kind of self-explanatory. We're just going to have to get all of our buffs and debuffs out of the way here very, very quickly. All right? So what he's going to do on this turn is turn 1, he's going to do 2 jabs and then a weak elemental damage attack. So in other words, if you have that coat, you're not going to take much damage. Now, I'll probably take a little bit of early damage here, but it's not something that's going to be end of the world stuff for me. Mostly because, well, when Haruhime comes in, we're going to utilize her a little bit differently than we have before. Now, I did do my SA gauge buff on turn 1. That's just to get some extra SAs out. If I don't do that, I don't have enough SAs by the end of this run. So, you know, you want to make sure that you are planning ahead in these types of things. Now, on this one, we're going to go ahead and do a single target debuff. Now, it is worth noting that all of these are going to go away. Those 2 buffs, well, buff and debuff that I'm doing turn 1 and turn 2, those will be gone on turn 4. But what we're really trying to do is we're trying to get early damage in here, okay? We'll go ahead and continue our general buff and debuff stack with all of our units. And what he's going to do here is he's going to do Franking Zephyr times 1. That decreases buff duration times 1 and 2 jabs. So, looks like buff duration. So it decreases buff duration? Doesn't look like he did. I don't think that's right. It says in my notes that he does, but I don't think he did. Unless he decreases his own buff duration. That doesn't make any sense. Anyway, irrelevant. That's weird. It says, so in my notes it says that the Franking Zephyr will decrease buff duration, but I haven't noticed him doing that, so maybe that's irrelevant. Maybe he doesn't do that anymore. Either that, because nobody's really been replicated. Weird. Okay. Irrelevant. That's apparently what he did. Now, on this turn, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to have to do a big debuff with him. Now, the good news is you want to check here because everything is actually moved out. I have enough buffs in front of me that I can actually do a debuff on this turn. If I can't, then what I've got to do is I've got to do Yosuga on this turn and then Akane on the next turn. You need Akane on turn 4. It's going to be really, really important. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and use it on this turn and move forward with this. Now, there is an opportunity here to use someone like Otaro, the one that we got during the anniversary, to do an early debuff. But in my opinion, I don't think it's as important to get the early debuffs out. It's much more important, in my opinion, to go ahead and... Oh, you know what? I think it actually was her. No, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, doesn't matter who it was. It was somebody. But basically what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and go into doing our big hits. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead and do our Akane debuff, the 40% debuff on Finn. Now, he's going to come out with a grand melee. All units get 150% strength and magic. Him and us. Now, unfortunately, that's going to happen mid-attack, but you'll see if you are paying attention here to the icons. On the very top of them, there's a strength down and a magic down, and then there's a strength up and a magic up. Both of those give him 150 strength and magic. Now, we got to get rid of that. That's why I said we need Anya on that turn. Okay? Now, I'm going to go ahead and do Yosuga on this turn. It really actually doesn't matter too much because every buff is gone. So, actually, I take that back. I'm going to go ahead and do Sheikah just to basically make sure that we can get a little bit of extra power out of this attack. That is, of course, going to give us a little bit more counter and penetration rate. Penetration being the number one thing they're going to get out of this. I believe they already have a counter rate that's a little bit higher. And we're going to just go ahead and continue spamming our big attacks, especially paying attention to Anya here, because Anya's got that strength and magic removal. We got to get rid of that. Now, the nice part is that actually is affecting... Notice she has magic up 50% and, 150% and strength up 150%. This is the big difference between Finn and other units. That buff he does affects everybody on the field. But remember, at the end of this turn, when he does his SA, it wipes everybody's out. So we're only going to have it for this turn. Now, there is something to be said for maybe doing an essay on this turn, but I'm going to wait on my essays. Okay? Now, you could actually build your essay stack however you want to do it. The essay stack that I'm going to choose to use here is basically designed to get the most out of the units that I think are going to produce the most damage. Now, if I'm honest here, I haven't actually worked out the best way to get maximum damage out. So I'm still building my stacks a little bit, doing some final refinements. So if my numbers at the end of this don't look perfect, it's because I'm still trying to figure out when and where to get, because we're right now at this juncture of doing little tiny attacks here and there to try to get a little tiny bit more damage out than what we have. But, you can adjust accordingly. The gist of this is just knowing how to attack Finn. So we're going to go ahead and make sure we have Shinobi Strike here. You can use anybody who does this, but you got to get rid of that Strength and Magic buff with Finn. I'm going to do Sheikah to get a little bit of extra damage, and I'm going to do everybody else's big attack. So let's go. And the reason I'm not going to do Yosuga on this turn, it's kind of a wasted move. It would be nice to get everybody, a big heal here, but I don't think we need it, honestly, because this is only the first major SA, and we already have HP regen in play because we did Akane. Now, there are situations where you might not wander into this with, you might not have a lot of health, or you might not have a lot of the buffs or whatever, they didn't get replicated or what have you. So maybe at that juncture, you need to actually go ahead and redo a lot of that stuff. You need Yosuga at that point, but I'm lucky enough that I built my team so I don't actually need that. So entirely, turns with you 4, I never, ever, ever use it. All right. Now, what he does on turn 4, he does an elemental damage up at the start of the turn, 2 jabs, and at the end of the turn, he does that big SA that we saw that clears all buffs and debuffs. Everything is gone. Every unit is nullified with the exception, obviously, of assist skills, because those never get nullified. Now, so basically, we got to go back in. We got to build our buff and debuff stack all over again. Nothing will be in play at all. Nothing whatsoever. So, let's go ahead and build this. Now, on this turn 5, let's go ahead and... Yep, everybody's turn 1. Now, what he's going to do here is he's going to do jab times 2. Really nothing too extraordinary. He's going to do 2 simple AoE attacks. Pretty easy stuff. Not the end of the world. Now, turn 6 is where it starts to get a little weird. All right, I'm going to go ahead. We got Strength and Magic. That is all going to go out 2 turns. I'm going to do Sheikah here because Sheikah is going to obviously give us that counter and penetration rate buff, and we need that going forward. Now, because we did Akane this turn, he is debuffed, but every turn after this, I'm going to have to do Yosuga based up until turn 8. So turn 7 and 8, I'm going to be relying on Yosuga for us to go forward. So do bear that in mind, okay? Now, we're going to continue our general buff and debuff stack, so I just need to make sure that everybody is applying all of their elements, and you'll actually see the icons on everybody pop up and start to really replicate. This is why I always play with icons on. If you don't know how to do that, up at the very top corner of there next to Auto Battle, you'll see a little thing that lit up that says icons. That's what's giving me these little bottle cap looking things that tell me basically what's going on. So learn to use these. They'll help you out a lot. Now on turn 6, he actually did a Franking Zephyr, says ×1, Emerald Tip ×1, and a strong elemental damage. So you kind of see what he did there. I believe the one of those is a single target, I believe. But I'm not 100% on that. So the good news is, though, we have a lot of HP, HP regen still. And on this turn, I'm going to go ahead and start doing Yosuga, because you'll notice that Haruhime's buffs are about to expire. I don't want that. So rather than letting those expire, we're going to go ahead and replicate those. I'm going to go ahead and start doing all of our big attacks. And we're basically going to do big attacks turn 7 and 8. Now, turn 7, he's going to do Emerald Tip ×1. I believe, once again, I think that's the single target attack. Or is it an AoE? Maybe it's an AoE, because I did just see him do an AoE. No, okay. So he did an Emerald Tip ×1, Jade Jab ×1. I don't think it was called Jab before. Jade Jab ×1, and Grand Melee. Grand Melee being that last, fairly sizable attack he did. Jab obviously being his absolute favorite thing to do, it seems. So turn 8 is once again just like turn 7 for me. Just everybody does their biggest attack. I'm not going over the attack stats. I guess the attack stack that I'm building with everybody should be pretty straightforward at this juncture. Okay, turn 8, J Jab times 2. He's gonna do J Jab times 2, and at the end of the turn, he's gonna do another SA that clears everybody's buffs and debuffs. Now you'll notice here in a moment that he actually take that back. Maybe it was the end. Yeah, I take it back. End of turn 7. That grand melee. That's the big buff. I apologize. I didn't notice that before. That's what he does. That gives the big 150% strength and magic buff. I take that back. That's what that was. Bam. Now you notice we're actually starting to take damage here. We're starting to take some serious damage, especially Anya. So at this juncture, we need to be a little more thoughtful about how we're proceeding so that we can survive and have enough HP regen and healing going into turn 12. Because turn 12 is going to be the next big SA. That's our big kind of bottleneck in this. That's where we really need to make sure we survive. So turn 9, once again, everything's been wiped out. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do our buff and debuff stack, just like we've always done before. You got to get that buff and debuff stack absolutely perfect. Okay? Absolutely perfect. Now, he's going to come with an elemental down and 2 J jabs. So, that elemental down is an elemental debuff. You'll see it right here. See, it says Earth Attribute Resistance 30% down. That's that elemental resistance down. I believe he does that every... Yeah. So, I believe he does that the beginning of every turn. So, or beginning of every 4 turns or something like that. So, you want to make sure you're paying close attention to this. This is one of the biggest reasons that I say we have got to use those coats. You got to use those coats. All right? Turn 10. Now, turn 10 becomes interesting. Turn 10 is where you want to start considering what you're going to do with your SAs. It's either turn 10 or turn 11 that you're going to start considering, okay, when is it wise to SA? For me, I'm actually going to wait. I'm going to continue doing my buff and debuff stack because I want those buffs and debuffs in place. Okay? Now, there are situations where you actually might want to go ahead and do some SAs on turn 10. In my situation here, I don't think it's beneficial. I'm going to wait till turn 11 to do mine, just because I still got to get some debuffs out to make sure we're going to get the maximum amount of damage we can out of our units. Now, notice my SA gauge up top is almost full. At the end of this turn, that should be completely full. That does mean actually I'm going to be reducing my power a little bit by not doing it on this turn, but I digress. Now, the other thing to consider here, when you're considering your SA attack methodology, I guess for lack of a better word, do not be tempted to use Haruhime's attack. We talked about this last night on the stream. I get into the habit in Record Buster of just wanting to do Haruhime's attack, but it's pointless. The whole point in hers is to give you strength and magic 100%, and you're already going to get strength and magic 150% on turn 11, so it's pointless. You want to make sure that you're just basically doing everything you can right here, right now. Now, that said, there is something to be said for doing SAs on turn 12 when you have those buffs. Personally, I've found in my builds, waiting for my teams, waiting till turn 12 actually is a deficit. I'm not doing nearly as much damage by waiting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and try to continue in here and just basically try to get the SAs out on turn 11. Yes, they're not going to be as powerful, but I'm going to get more SAs, and henceforth in my situation, I'm going to be getting more damage out of it. Okay, now turn 10, he's going to do an elemental up. That's going to increase his elemental damage. And he's going to do a Jade Impale. Was that kind of larger attack you saw there at the end. So he should have Earth Attribute damage up 30%. So we're down 30%. He's up 30%. You could try to get rid of those, but in my opinion, if you've built your team anywhere near like the way I've built my team, it's really not that big of a deal. Yes, turn 12 is not going to feel great, but it's also not going to kill us, so I just don't worry about it. I'm using the Earth Coats, and basically his attacks are... Basically, his buff is nullified by the coat. The coat almost takes that... Like, it's like a 10% buff on top of the coat, but it's really not that big of a deal. It's not anything that's really going to make me lose sleep, I hope. Might eat those words, but I hope. Now, I'm going to do a double SA with Eyes and Anya. In this situation, Anya is a really good physical hitter. We have actually debuffed physical down 50%. And I've already debuffed light 30%, which is why I did it on turn 10 instead of turn 11. So that debuff is going to be really important for me. Now, this is the culmination of everything that's between assists and adventures and everything. So your numbers may not look this good. Your numbers may look slightly better. There's obvious situations out there that can differentiate. But for me, turn 11 is that sweet spot. Turn 11 is that place where I'm like, okay, cool. Now we can finally start doing some attacks. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and do... I'm going to do Yasuga with Haruhime, because remember, we're not SAing with Haruhime. I'm going to do a double SA with Eyes and Anya. Remember, I don't want to do Anya's SA on turn 12, because I need that Shinobi Strike on turn 12. So, and I need to get this out. So I am literally... I've got like one attack, and this will be a full 4 times gauge. I could do a triple attack here, but in my opinion, in my personal opinion... I don't think that Ryu really does enough damage to justify it, so I'm just going to do her full attack and do a double SA. Hopefully that makes sense, okay? So let's see what kind of damage we produce here. There we go. Bam. Not quite a mil, not quite a mil. But remember, we also don't have the big strength buff. And these are going to apply some debuffs too, so that is definitely worth considering. Plus, remember, Anya is going to do a single target debuff, 25%. It's only an extra 5%, but it'll add up. And because Finn doesn't remove debuffs on turn 12, like he does on turn 8 or turn 4 and 8, that means that all these debuffs that we're applying now are going to stay in place. That's another reason why it's really important to try to get these out early-ish. But in my opinion, I found that doing it on turn 11 for my build is better than turn 10. Some people do it turn 10, some people do it turn 11. A lot of it depends upon your team build. All right. Now, what he did is he did a Frankling Zephyr once and a Jade Impale once. Did a couple of those attacks. And then he just did that big Strength and Magic increase. So you'll see that he has a Strength and Magic buff there on the very end. And we have it as well. Now... There is the temptation to SA here, but I'm going to wait, and I'm going to do a double SA on the next turn. I'm going to save my SAs on this turn, because I need to do Shinobi Strike here, just to basically get that damage out. Now, I am using the Kid Eyes, and it is worth also noting that Kid Eyes does have Berserker Rush here, which gets extra damage out. If you have a unit that's doing this, you want to make sure you're reapplying this buff to get a little bit of that extra damage out of your unit. That can be a huge asset in getting just a slightly better number. So do manage these types of things. But remember, they're not affected by SA. So really, now I know that I'm going to have that because of the SAs that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to have that for every turn going forward until the end of the match. So I'm happy. But you want to keep an eye on that because that could run out on you, depending on how you do your stacks. So we're going to do Yasuga. I need to make sure that I have perfect health at the end of this turn. Akane should still be in effect for everyone. That's a HP regen. Doesn't look like it. Yeah. So HP regen 30%. That is still in play. That is in play to the end of this turn, and that is really, really important. I need, basically, I need a heal on this turn, and I need HP regen so we can survive the SA. It's really, really important. All right. So we're going to do Yasuga. We're going to do Durandal Edge. That's her big attack. We're going to go ahead and do Shinobi Strike just to get rid of the strength and magic buffs. And we're going to do this Ryu's big attack because she's a wind unit. So let's go. Now remember, turn 12. He's going to do Storm Wraith ×1, Jade Impale ×1. And at the end of the turn, he's going to go ahead and do a big SA. But this will finally not cleanse us. This is going to basically be... just an SA without the cleanse. Now, it's going to hurt. It's not going to feel great. But if you've planned accordingly, you should very easily be able to survive this. Okay? Notice that even with his buffs and everything, yes, it didn't feel awesome, but we did survive it, no questions asked. Now, here's the best part. Notice, his buffs are gone. The strength and magic buff that he gave himself, they're gone. That said, we've still got him. Magic times 150 and strength times 150. They're all replicated, and they're going to be good to go until the end of the match. Now, I'm going to keep doing Yosuga a little bit with Haruhime to make sure that they don't fall off. But, and honestly, because there's 6 turns at this point, there's no way they could fall off. But I just want to be a little more cautious. Now, I'm going to once again, like I said before, do a double SA here with Anya and with Eyes. And just continue basically spamming Cyclocity because that's her big attack. Yosuga's going to do 2 things, though, here. Yosuga's not only going to replicate that strength and magic buff to make sure it doesn't run out. Remember, that's even better than her buff, so hopefully you're taking advantage of this properly. It also is going to give them a decent heal. So the goal here is just to make sure that everybody survives this until turn 15 so we can do maximum damage. Okay? Let's see what kind of numbers we pull now. Now, we were struggling to make a mill on the last one. In fact, I don't even think Anya did 600k. And to be fair, Anya should be pulling just right around 1 million on that attack. So I think she just didn't get critical or penetration. Maybe not even both. 1.9 mil. That is the difference in having a really good strength buff. Alright. What's Anya got? Anya should have another really good one on this one. Hopefully we've still got our penetration. Yep. Alright, just over 2 mil. Nice. Nice. So good stuff that. So this is another situation where we're really coming out and just maximizing our damage potential by utilizing SAs in a very strategic manner. Okay? So now turn 13, he's going to do Frankling Zephyr times 1 and Jade Impale times 1. We're not really worried about it at this point. Health's going to be a little bit of a concern, but basically at this juncture, we're just going to spam our biggest attacks on this turn and Yosuga to make sure we get heals. Now he's going to do Emerald Tip times 2 and a Jade Impale times 1. So we want to be very careful about how we're taking it. That said Landmine Strike. Maybe they changed the names of the attack. They must have changed the names of the attack. I just noticed that. I only happen to now notice that. So maybe my notes on this, the names of the attacks might be different, but pay close attention to the attacks he's doing versus necessarily what the names are. But most of these are like big, fairly strong AoEs, so you want to make sure that you're just accommodating for that more or less. Man, I really wish I had... I need to go back and I just need to update the notes on which specific attacks he's doing. Maybe he renames the attacks every time. I don't know. This is... the notes here even say this needs to be worked on, so maybe the names have changed over time or something. I'm not really certain. It's a little embarrassing, but neither here nor there. I'm now going to do a big SA with Eyes, because remember, Eyes does have the biggest debuff. There were some questions whether I should use Eyes or Anya, but I'm going to use Eyes because, once again, Eyes should, in theory, be doing the most damage. In theory. I think Anya did actually last time. But let's go ahead and see. And then we're just going to do everyone else's big attack. Now, turn 15, Finn's going to do one strong single target attack and then one AoE attack. So, and honestly, I'm going to be real. After we get our main attacks out, his attacks are going to happen so late. If he kills somebody, I'm not worried about it. Once we've got our attacks out, it's really not the end of the world. Not by a long shot. So that's pretty much how you handle this situation. Now, once again, I think the names of the attacks have changed. We probably have that wrong. Oh, okay. Actually impressive. I got a slightly higher score. So I know I've got a little bit more to give. I think, honestly, in this team, I did a couple things wrong, and I've been building my stacks. I think I've got easily 550 in this team. I just got to really tweak my numbers to get that out. But pay close attention to what he's doing and pay close attention to your SA stack, and you can maximize damage and get through this. Now, obviously, my units are all max limit broken. If your units are not max limit broken, don't try to take on level 6. Take on, like, level 3 or 4. Now, you won't get numbers that look this pretty because everything is based on the damage modifier or the difficulty modifier. But largely, if you really just take this to heart and you plan accordingly, you could pull really substantial numbers even at whatever difficulty you're at. And even if you're only getting 500 iris, for your run, don't get frustrated by that. Even if you're new at the game and you're not getting like an amazing amount of iris, within a month or two, you'll have this down completely. Every record buster is a little tiny bit different, but we get record busters about every 2 weeks. So you're going to have plenty of damage potential. For now, guys, though, that is going to be the video. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments section down below. Sorry the names are wrong. I'll have to go back and correct those, and then maybe we'll do a revision tomorrow after I've done a little bit more research on this. But I want to get this out so people can maximize the amount of damage they're producing. But for now, that's the video. Like, comment, share. I'll be back at you guys with more Danmachi very soon.